The colony ship Hope's Dream moved slowly through the dark space between stars. It was not a warship. It was not fast. It was simply a home for the 37 children and 12 caretakers who lived inside it. They were traveling to a new colony world where families waited for them. Captain stood on the bridge and watched the stars through the main window. She was a woman of 42 years with tired eyes and a gentle smile. She had been moving children across the galaxy for 15 years. This was supposed to be her last trip before retirement. "Captain, the children are asking for you," said through the communication system, was the head nurse, a young woman with a calm voice and steady hands. She had worked with for 3 years. Smiled, "Tell them I will come read stories after dinner." In the ship's common room, the children were playing. The youngest was only 4 years old. Her name was, and she had big brown eyes and a laugh that made everyone around her happy. The oldest was a boy of 16 named. He helped the caretakers watch over the smaller children. "Can you help me?" asked Little, holding up a puzzle piece. Knelt down beside her. "Of course, let me see." This was life on Hope's Dream. Simple, peaceful, safe. But safety is sometimes just a feeling that disappears without warning. The warship came out of nowhere. One moment the space around Hope's Dream was empty. The next moment, a massive ship blocked out the stars. It was 10 times larger than the colony ship, covered in sharp edges and weapons that glowed with purple energy. On the bridge, alarms started screaming. "Grab the communication controls. All hands, this is the captain. We have an unknown ship approaching. Everyone stay calm." But staying calm became impossible when the ship fired. The shot was not meant to destroy, it was meant to stop. The purple energy hit Hope's Dream and every system went dark. The lights, the engines, everything. In the common room, children started crying, moved quickly, gathering the little ones close to her. "It's okay. It's okay, stay together." Stood in front of the younger children, his fists tight at his sides. He was scared, but he would not show it. They boarded the ship within minutes. They were tall creatures, almost 3 meters high, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were completely black, showing no emotion. They wore armor that looked like insect shells. Commander led them. He was the tallest of all, with marks on his armor that showed his high rank. He looked at the humans with the same interest a person might look at insects. "These are humans?" he asked one of his officers. "Yes, Commander. A weak species from the outer systems. They have no natural weapons, no claws, no poison. Their teeth cannot even break skin." Made a sound like a laugh. "And yet they spread across the galaxy like disease. Interesting." Captain stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. "I am captain of the colony ship Hope's Dream. We are civilians. We carry no weapons. We are just transporting children to their families." Looked down at her. He was almost twice her height. "Children." "Yes, 37 human children. Please, we mean no harm to anyone. Let us continue our journey." Turned to look at the common room door. Through the small window, he could see holding the crying children. He could see standing guard with nothing but his fists. "Children," said again. A terrible smile crossed his gray face. "Human children are valuable. Many species in the Empire would pay well for such rare specimens." Felt her blood turn cold. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that your journey ends here, human. Your children now belong to the Empire." What happened next would stay in his memory forever. The soldiers moved through the ship like a wave. They pulled children from his arms. They pushed to the ground when he tried to fight. Little screamed for help as a 4-armed soldier lifted her like she weighed nothing. Tried to stop them. She threw herself hitting his chest with her small fists. He simply caught her by the neck and lifted her off the ground. "Brave," he said, watching her struggle. "But foolish. Your species is weak. You cannot fight us." "Please," gasped. "They are just children. They are scared, please." Dropped her to the floor. Put them in the cargo hold, all of them, the adults too. We will sort them later. The cargo hold of the ship was cold and dark. Metal cages lined the walls, designed for creatures much larger than humans. The soldiers threw the children inside like they were animals. 3 or 4 children to each cage. The adults were put in their own cages at the far end. Was shaking. She was in a cage with 2 other small children, and none of them could stop crying. Through the bars, she could see in a cage across the room. His face was bleeding from where a soldier had hit him. "It will be okay," called to her. He did not believe his own words, but he said them anyway. "Help will come." In her cage, closed her eyes and thought of the distress signal she had sent just before the systems died. It was a single burst of information, shot into space toward the nearest human station. Maybe someone received it, maybe not. Ambassador was eating dinner when the signal arrived at Station Horizon. He was a man of 60 years with gray hair and a face that showed many years of hard work. He had spent his life speaking for humanity, making peace with alien species across the galaxy. His assistant rushed into the room. "Sir, we received an emergency signal, a colony ship called Hope's Dream." Put down his food. What happened? "We are not sure. The signal cut off suddenly, but the ship was in territory." The color left his face. He knew they were slavers, traders of living beings. They saw other species as products to buy and sell. "How many people were on that ship?" 37 children, sir, and 12 adults." Stood up slowly. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from something else. Something that humans had carried inside them since the beginning of time. "Contact the High Council," he said. His voice was quiet but heavy. "Tell them Ambassador of the Human Coalition wishes to speak with them. Immediately." His assistant hesitated. "Sir, the do not respond well to demands." "This is not a demand," said. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, children were crying in cages. Human children. This is a warning. They just made the worst mistake in their history. They just do not know it yet. The High Council met in a chamber that had stood for 2,000 years. It was built from black stone and decorated with the bones of conquered species. The 5 council members sat on raised platforms, looking down at the communication screen like gods looking at insects. Ambassador appeared on the screen. He stood alone in a simple room with white walls. He wore no armor. He carried no weapons. He looked like nothing special. "You are the human ambassador?" asked High Counselor. She was the oldest of the council, with gray skin that had turned almost white with age. Her forearms were thin but still strong. "I am ambassador of the Human Coalition," he said. His voice was calm and controlled. "I speak for all human worlds." "We know who you are," said another council member named. He was younger with fresh scars on his face from recent battles. "We received your request to speak. We were curious. Humans rarely contact us directly." "Then you understand this is important." Made a clicking sound that meant she was amused. "Speak, little human. What is so important that you disturb our council?" Did not blink. 12 hours ago, one of your warships attacked a human colony vessel. The ship was called Hope's Dream. It carried 37 children and 12 adult caretakers. They were taken as prisoners. The council members looked at each other, laughed. "Yes, we received Commander's report," said. "A successful capture. Human children are rare in the slave markets. They will bring excellent prices." "You will release them," said. The chamber went quiet. Then all 5 council members started laughing. The sound echoed off the ancient walls like thunder. "Release them," said when she could speak again. "Little human, do you understand where you are? Do you understand who we are? The Empire has conquered 40 star systems. We have destroyed species that were ancient when your kind was still living in caves." "You will release them," repeated. His voice did not change. "You have 1 galactic cycle to return them safely to human space, Every child, every adult, unharmed. Leaned forward. Or what human, what will you do? Your species has no great fleet. You have no powerful weapons. You spread across the stars by being useful to stronger species. You are survivors, yes, but you are not fighters. You are wrong, said simply. We are wrong, asked, explain. Took a breath. When he spoke next, his voice carried a weight that made even the ancient council members listen carefully. You see humans and you see small bodies, weak muscles, no claws, no armor. You see creatures that should have died long ago. And you wonder how we survived, how we spread so far, how we built so much. He paused. You think it is because we are peaceful, because we talk instead of fight, because we help other species and ask for little in return. And yes, these things are true. Humans prefer peace. We prefer to build rather than destroy. Then you agree with us, said. You are not a threat. I am not finished, said. His eyes grew hard. We prefer peace, but we are capable of war more than that. When humans fight, we do not stop. We do not rest. We do not show mercy. Our history is filled with blood. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times because of how well we learned to kill. The council members shifted in their seats. Something in the human's voice was different now. But we learned to control that part of ourselves, continued. We learned to be gentle, to be kind. We taught our children that violence is the last choice, not the first. And we worked very hard to protect our children from the horrors we knew we were capable of. He stepped closer to the screen. You have made a terrible mistake, Council. You did not just take humans. You did not just take adults who might accept their fate and find a way to survive. You took children, human children, the most protected, most precious things in our entire civilization. Started to speak but cut her off. Every human in the galaxy has now heard what you did. Every parent, every grandparent, every person who has ever held a human child in their arms and sworn to protect them. Do you know what happens when humans feel that their children are in danger? No one answered. We remember who we used to be. We remember the wars, the weapons, the willingness to burn entire worlds if it meant protecting our young. Every human carries this inside them, every single one. We simply choose not to use it. His voice dropped lower. You have just taken that choice away from us. Laughed again, but it sounded less certain this time. You are trying to frighten us with words. It will not work. We have seen the human military. It is small. It is defensive. It cannot threaten us. You have seen what we show the galaxy, said. You have seen the face we wear when we want peace. You have not seen what lies beneath. He looked at each council member in turn. One galactic cycle. Return the children unharmed, or learn what humans become when they have nothing left to lose. The screen went dark. In the council chamber, silence hung heavy in the air. Finally, made a dismissive gesture with all four arms. Empty threats from a weak species. The human is trying to scare us into giving up valuable merchandise. But was quiet. She was very old. She had seen many species rise and fall, and something in the human's eyes had disturbed her. Perhaps, she said slowly, or perhaps we have made an error. An error, laughed. High Counselor, please, humans are soft. They help other species. They build hospitals and schools. They teach their children to share. These are not the behaviors of warriors. They are the behaviors of a species that has learned to control itself, said. The most dangerous predators are often the ones who appear the most calm. Shook his head. You worry too much. The humans will complain. They will send angry messages. They might stop trading with us, but they will not fight. They cannot fight. They do not have the strength. The other council members agreed with. One by one, they voted to ignore the human warning. Was the last to vote. She hesitated for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well, we will keep the human prisoners, but increase the guard around Commander's ship and tell him to move the prisoners to the immediately. I want them where we can protect them." "Protect them from what?" asked. Did not answer. She simply stood and walked out of the chamber. She was probably being foolish. The humans were weak. Everyone knew this. But she was old, and she had learned that the most dangerous creatures were not always the largest or the strongest. Sometimes they were the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones who smiled and helped and seemed harmless, until you threatened their young. In the cargo hold of the warship, the children had stopped crying. They had no tears left. Little was curled up in the corner of her cage, holding onto the two other children beside her. They were all shivering from the cold. Captain watched them from her own cage. Her heart was breaking, but she forced herself to stay strong. The children needed to see her calm. They needed to believe that everything would be okay. Was in the cage next to her. The young nurse had a bruise on her face from where a guard had struck her. "Do you think anyone heard our signal?" whispered. Looked at the children. At, who was still trying to be brave even though he was just a boy. "Someone heard," said. "Someone always hears." "But will they come? Will they really send help for us?" Remembered Ambassador. She had never met him, but she knew his reputation. She knew how much humans valued their children. She knew what her species was capable of when pushed too far. "They will come," she said quietly. "And when they do, these creatures will learn exactly what happens when you cage human children." Somewhere across the galaxy, ships were already beginning to move. The message spread across human space like fire through dry grass. It moved from station to station, from planet to planet, from ship to ship. It carried no orders. It made no demands. It simply told the truth. 37 human children were in cages. They refused to release them. That was all it took. On the farming world of New Eden, a man named Wu was working in his fields when his communication device made a sound. He was 73 years old, with a bent back and hands rough from decades of hard work. He had been a soldier once, long ago. He had tried very hard to forget that part of his life. He read the message, then he read it again. His wife found him standing in the middle of the field, staring at nothing. "What is wrong?" she asked. "Children," he said. His voice sounded strange. "They took children." His wife read the message. Her face went pale. "What will you do?" Wu walked to the old storage building behind their house. He had not opened it in 20 years. Inside, covered with dust and wrapped in cloth, was his military armor, his weapons, things he had sworn never to touch again. "I am going to get them back," he said. On the space station called Gateway, a young pilot named was drinking alone in a bar. She was 28 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much pain. She flew cargo ships now, but she had been trained for combat. The military had released her after an accident that was not her fault. She had been lost ever since. Her communication device showed the message. Put down her drink. She looked at the words for a long time. Then she stood up and walked to the docking bay where her ship waited. A cargo ship was not a warship, but it was fast, and she knew how to make it fight. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated itself millions of times. Old soldiers who had retired to peaceful lives picked up their weapons again. Young pilots who had never seen combat volunteered for duty. Scientists who had spent their lives studying stars began calculating attack patterns. Mining ships, transport vessels, private yachts, anything that could fly through space started moving toward territory. Admiral Park received reports at Human Coalition headquarters. She was 55 years old, a small woman with a sharp mind and a calm presence. She had commanded the human fleet for 15 years, hoping she would never have to use it for war. "How many ships?" she asked her officers. "Military vessels from all human worlds are mobilizing, Admiral. That gives us approximately 300 warships." Park nodded, "and civilian volunteers." Her officer hesitated. "Admiral, we have lost count. Thousands of ships have reported in. More are arriving every hour. Many of them are not combat vessels. They do not need to be combat vessels. They just need to be there. Ambassador entered the command center. He looked tired, but there was fire in his eyes. They have not responded to our deadline, he said. They think we are bluffing. Then we will show them we are not, Park replied. I have ordered the fleet to assemble at Point Echo, just outside space. We will be ready to move in 16 hours. Is it enough? 300 warships against the Empire. Park almost smiled. 300 military ships, yes, but look at the civilian count, Ambassador. She pointed at a screen. The number kept climbing. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. Ships from every corner of human space, all moving in the same direction. Watch the number rise. They are not soldiers. No, they are parents, brothers, sisters, grandparents, people who have held children and know what it means to protect them. They will destroy them. Maybe, Park said, but they will have to destroy all of them, every single one, and I do not think they understand what that means. On the colony world of Sunrise, an old woman named Bora sat in her chair and listened to the news. She was 89 years old. She could barely walk. Her eyes were failing, but her mind was sharp. Her great-granddaughter, a girl of 8, sat beside her. Grandmother, what is happening? The girl asked. Bora thought about her answer. She thought about the children in cages. She thought about her own great-granddaughter, safe and warm beside her. Some bad people took human children, she said finally, and now everyone is going to bring them back. Everyone. Everyone who can, because that is what humans do. We protect our children, no matter what. The girl was quiet for a moment, even if it is dangerous. Bora took her great-granddaughter's hand, especially if it is dangerous. Do you know why? The girl shook her head. Because children are the future, they are hope. They are everything we fight to build and protect. When someone hurts children, they are not just hurting those children. They are attacking everything we believe in, everything we dream of, everything we are. She squeezed the small hand in hers. And humans do not forgive that, ever. The fleet gathered at Point Echo like a swarm of angry insects. 300 military warships formed the center, arranged in attack patterns that had been practiced for generations but never used. Around them, in an ever-growing cloud, were the civilian ships. Transport vessels that had been carrying food and supplies. Mining ships with drills that could cut through solid rock. Private yachts belonging to wealthy families who had sent their pilots and their ships without being asked. Even a few alien vessels, piloted by species who had lived among humans and learned to love them. The scout ship that found them could not believe what it was seeing. Command, this is Scout 7, the pilot reported. I have reached the border coordinates. I see the human fleet. Report their numbers, Scout 7. The pilot counted, then counted again, then gave up counting. Command, I count over 300 military vessels. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, carriers, but there are thousands of other ships as well, small ships, civilian ships. They keep arriving, more every minute. There was silence on the communication channel. Scout 7, confirm your report. You are saying thousands of ships. Confirmed, Command. The humans have sent everything. Their entire civilization is flying toward us. The commander received the report. He was standing in the massive prison facility where the human children had been moved. The cages were larger here, but still cold, still dark, still filled with the sound of crying. Captain watched him read the message. She saw his forearms tighten. She saw something change in his black eyes. What is wrong? She called out. Bad news. Turned to look at her. For the first time since the capture, he did not look amused. Your people are coming, he said. I know. They cannot win. We have the strongest military in 40 star systems. We have weapons that can destroy planets. Smiled, it was not a happy smile. You still do not understand, do you? You think this is about winning or losing. You think this is about military strength or weapons. Then what is it about? Pressed her face against the bars of her cage. Her eyes were bright with something that looked almost like joy. It is about making sure you never do this again. It is about teaching the entire galaxy what happens when you touch human children. Even if we lose, even if every ship is destroyed, more will come, and more, and more, until there is nothing left of your empire but a warning to others. She pointed at the cages around her, at the children who were finally starting to hope. You should have listened to Ambassador. You should have returned them when you had the chance. Now it is too late. Said nothing, he simply turned and walked away. But for the first time, his steps were not confident. For the first time, he was afraid. There was a planet of black mountains and purple skis. It had been the center of their empire for 2,000 years. No enemy had ever come close to it. No species had ever been foolish enough to try. Until now. Commander stood on the main defense platform, watching the sky through massive screens. Around him, officers moved quickly, preparing weapons and shields. The planetary defense system was the strongest in the Empire. It had enough firepower to destroy 100 warships. But the humans had not brought 100 warships. Commander and officer called out. His voice was shaking. They are entering the system. The screens lit up with dots of light, first a few hundred, then 1,000, then thousands more. The human fleet poured out of faster-than-light travel like water breaking through a dam. Watched the numbers climb. 300 military warships, 4,000 civilian vessels, 5,000, 6,000. The count kept rising. That is impossible, someone whispered. They sent their entire civilization. High Counselor arrived at the command center. She moved slowly, her old bones protesting each step, but her eyes were sharp. I warned you, she said too. I warned all of you. It does not matter how many they bring, replied, but his voice lacked confidence. Our defenses can handle them. Our weapons are stronger, our ships are faster. Look at them, said quietly. Look at how they fly. The human fleet was moving in a pattern that military experts across the galaxy would study for centuries. The military warships were not leading the attack. They were positioned around the civilian vessels, protecting them, shielding them. The civilians were the attack. Thousands of small ships, each piloted by ordinary humans, flew straight toward the planetary defenses. They knew they would die. They did not slow down. Open fire, screamed. The weapons lit up the sky. Plasma cannons, energy beams, missiles that could crack moons in half. They struck the human fleet with enough power to destroy cities. Ships exploded, hundreds of them, cargo vessels, mining ships, small private craft. They burst into flames and scattered across space like falling stars. But more came. For every ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. They flew through the fire. They dodged the beams. They crashed their own vessels into defense platforms to create openings for others. Old Wu piloted his small fighter through the chaos. He had not flown combat in 50 years, but his hands remembered everything. He dodged plasma fire and spun through debris. Beside him, young pilots followed his lead. Stay together, he called over the communication channel. Protect the landing ships, get them through. A fighter came up behind him. Wu pulled his ship into a spin that should have been impossible for a man his age. He fired once, twice. The enemy ship exploded. Still got it, he whispered to himself. Led a group of cargo ships toward the main defense tower. Her vessel had no weapons, just speed and armor. But she knew that sometimes the best weapon was simply being willing to die. All ships follow me, she broadcast. We are going to punch a hole in their defenses. We will never survive. I know, but the landing ships behind us will. That is what matters. She pushed her engines to maximum. The other cargo ships followed. They flew straight at the tower, absorbing fire that would have destroyed military cruisers. Ship was hit. Alarms screamed. Fire filled the cockpit. She could feel the heat on her skin, but she did not turn away. She kept flying forward until her ship slammed into the tower's shield generator. The explosion created a hole. The landing ships flew through. Admiral Park watched from her command ship at the edge of the battle. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were gripping her chair so hard her knuckles had turned white. Civilian losses at 40%, an officer reported. I know. Admiral, they are dying by the thousands. I know. She watched another wave of small ships fly into the defenses. More explosions, more deaths, but slowly, surely, the defenses were falling. They are not soldiers, the officer said quietly. They are teachers and farmers and pilots. Why are they doing this? Park finally answered. Because those are their children down there. Not just the 37 on that ship. All children. Every human child that could ever be taken by any empire that thinks we are weak. She pointed at the screen. This is what happens when you threaten human children. The entire species rises. Every person who can fight will fight. Every person who can fly will fly. Every person who can give their life will give it gladly. The lines began to break, not because the humans had stronger weapons, not because they had better strategy, but because they simply would not stop coming. Commander watched his empire's greatest defenses fall one by one. He watched thousands of small ships sacrifice themselves to create openings. He watched human military vessels pour through those openings and begin to land on the surface. This cannot be happening, he said. We are the Empire. We have conquered 40 star systems. High Counselor stood beside him. She looked very old now, very tired. We conquered species that wanted to live, she said. The humans do not care if they live. They only care about their children. Below them, human soldiers were landing on soil for the first time in history. They moved with a fury that the galaxy had never seen from this species. These were not the peaceful traders and helpers that everyone knew. These were warriors, predators, monsters wearing human skin. In the prison facility, the children heard the explosions. They heard the fighting getting closer. Little looked up at Captain with wide eyes. What is happening? She asked. Was crying, but she was smiling too. Help is here, little one. They came for us. Pressed against the bars of his cage. Through a high window he could see the sky. It was filled with fire and smoke and falling ships, but he could also see human vessels landing. He could see soldiers running toward the building. They really came, he whispered. They came for us. Reached through the bars to touch his hand. Of course they did. We are human children. They would destroy the whole galaxy to save us. The door to the prison exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through, their weapons ready, their faces hard with rage. They looked at the cages. They looked at the children inside. For a moment, no one moved. Then the soldiers began to open the cages. Gently, so gently. Their hands that had just been killing enemies now moved like they were handling the most precious things in the universe. A soldier with gray hair and a face lifted out of her cage. She looked at him with scared eyes. It is okay, he said. His voice was soft. You are safe now. No one will ever hurt you again. Buried her face in his chest and cried. The soldier held her close and cried too. Captain was released by a young woman with burn marks on her arms. The same woman who had crashed her cargo ship into the defense tower. Asked, reading the name on her uniform. Nodded, we thought you were lost. The ship blew apart, but I made it to an escape pod. How many did we lose? Was quiet for a moment. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, we lost count. Looked around at the children being carried out of their cages, at the soldiers who were crying as they held them. They all came, she said. They all came for us. Every single one who could fly a ship replied. And those who could not fly prayed. The whole species was with us today. Outside, the forces were surrendering, not because they were defeated. They still had weapons. They still had soldiers. But they had seen what humans were willing to do for their children. And they knew that no matter how many ships they destroyed, more would come. Forever, until the Empire was nothing but dust and memory. Commander was brought before Admiral Park in chains. His black eyes were empty. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. "Do you understand now?" Park asked him quietly. Said nothing. "You called us weak. You called us soft. You thought we were prey." She leaned close. "We are not prey. We are the worst predators the galaxy has ever seen. We simply choose to be gentle. But when you touch our children, we remember what we really are." She straightened up. "And now the whole galaxy will remember too." The rescue ships carried the children home through a galaxy that had been forever changed. Every station they passed had people waiting. Crowds gathered to see the ships fly by, to wave at the small faces in the windows, to cry tears of joy and relief. 37 children, all alive, all safe. Little sat by a window and watched the stars go past. She was holding a small toy that one of the soldiers had given her. Her eyes were different now. Older. She had seen things that a child should never see, but she had also seen what her people were willing to do for her. Captain sat beside her, one arm wrapped around the small body. "Where are we going?" asked. Holmes said, "Your parents are waiting for you." "Really?" "Really? They have been waiting since the moment we were taken. They never stopped hopping." Was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up with serious eyes. "Why did everyone come for us? There were so many ships, so many people." Thought about the question. She thought about the thousands who had died. The old soldiers like Wu who had picked up weapons again. The young pilots like who had crashed their ships into enemy defenses. All the ordinary people who had flown toward almost certain death. "Because you are a child," she finally said. "And we are human. That is all the reason we need." The colony world of New Promise was the first stop. 3 children were going home there. Their parents had not slept in days. They had watched the battle from screens. They had counted the ships that were destroyed and prayed that their loved ones were not on them. When the rescue ship landed, thousands of people were waiting. The entire colony had come to the landing field. They stood in silence as the door opened and the children walked out. A girl of 6 ran down the ramp. Her mother screamed and ran forward, falling to her knees to catch her daughter in her arms. The sound she made was not words. It was something deeper than words, something that every parent in the galaxy would understand. Was the last of the older children to leave the ship. He stood at the top of the ramp looking at the crowd. His parents were there, his mother crying, his father trying to stay strong but failing. A woman pushed through the crowd. She was not his mother, she was a stranger, but she grabbed his hands and held them tight. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was breaking. "Thank you for protecting the little ones. We watched the videos from the ship. We saw how you stood in front of them, how you tried to fight even when you had no chance." Did not know what to say. "I did not do anything special. I just did what anyone would do." "No," the woman said. "You did what a human would do, and that is something very special indeed." Across the galaxy, the news spread. Not just to human worlds, but to every species that had ever heard of humanity. They watched recordings of the battle. They counted the civilian ships that had sacrificed themselves. They heard the stories of old soldiers and young pilots and ordinary people who had given everything. Though a species of insect-like creatures who had always thought humans were strange, gathered in their hive chambers to discuss what they had learned. The humans lost more than 20,000 ships, the hive mother said. Most of them were not military, they were civilians. "Why would they do this?" asked one of her advisors. "They could not have one without such sacrifice. They had enough military power." "But not enough to guarantee success," the hive mother replied. The civilians made certain that the mission would not fail. They turned a possible victory into an absolute one. For 37 children. The hive mother was silent for a long time. I have watched humans for many years, she finally said. I thought I understood them. I was wrong. They are not a species that calculates cost and benefit. They are a species that loves their children more than they fear death. She turned to face her entire council. We will add this to our laws. No will ever harm a human child. Not one, not ever. Pass this to every hive in our territory. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. Species that had never paid attention to humans before suddenly became very interested. Empires that had considered attacking human colonies quietly canceled their plans. Trade agreements that had been stuck for years were suddenly approved. The empire did not survive. It was not destroyed by human weapons. Humanity did not occupy their worlds or enslave their people. That was not the human way. Instead, the empire simply fell apart. Their conquered species saw what had happened. They saw that the great could be defeated. They saw that there were species who would fight to the last person for what they loved. One by one, the conquered worlds rose up. One by one, they retreated. Within 5 years, their empire was gone. 40 star systems built over 2,000 years reduced to nothing. Commander was tried for his crimes, not by humans but by a galactic court that included representatives from dozens of species. The evidence was simple. The verdict was quick. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life watching videos of human children laughing and playing. Happy children, safe children. He would watch them every day until he died, forced to see what he had threatened, what he had almost destroyed. Some said the punishment was too gentle. Others said it was perfect. Ambassador gave a speech on the 10th anniversary of the rescue. He stood on a stage in front of thousands of humans and aliens. His hair was completely white now, his face lined with age, but his voice was still strong. 10 years ago, we showed the galaxy who we really are, he said. Not the peaceful traders they thought they knew, not the helpful species that builds hospitals and schools. We showed them the other side, the side we keep hidden, the side we pray we never have to use. He looked out at the crowd. We lost many people that day. Good people, brave people, people who knew they were going to die and flew anyway. They did not do it for glory or territory or power. They did it because somewhere on a distant planet, children were crying in cages. His voice grew softer. Let this be the lesson the galaxy remembers. We are a gentle species. We prefer to help rather than harm. We build rather than destroy. We extend our hands in friendship to anyone who will take them. He paused. But if you threaten our children, we will become something else. Something that does not stop. Something that does not rest. Something that will tear down empires and burn stars and sacrifice everything, to bring them home safe. He raised his fist to the sky. Never again. No species will ever again think they can take human children. Not after what they saw, not after what we did. This is our promise to every child who will ever be born. You are protected. You are loved. And the entire species stands ready to fight for you. The crowd roared. Humans and aliens together, all of them cheering for the same thing. In the front row, a young woman held a small girl on her lap. The girl was 15 now, but she would always be little to those who remembered. Watched Ambassador speak. She remembered the cage. She remembered the cold. She remembered being scared. But most of all, she remembered looking up at the sky and seeing thousands of ships coming to save her. Mom, she said quietly, will anyone ever try to hurt human children again? Her mother, the woman who had spent days praying for her return, hugged her close. No, my darling, never again. They learned their lesson. Nodded, she leaned against her mother and watched the celebrations. Somewhere out there, across the vast darkness of space, other species were telling their children the same story. It was becoming a legend, a warning, a truth that would be passed down for generations. Never harm a human child. Because if you do, they will come for you, all of them. Every human who can fly, who can fight, who can breathe. They will cross any distance. They will sacrifice any amount. They will tear down anything that stands in their way. And they will never, ever stop. Until their children come home.